Welcome back to the lab. Once again, it is your old Professor Pilk, and per usual, we're going to come and talk today about the incoming Delphox raid that will be available starting on Thursday. So you got about 2 days to really prepare for this raid, and we really want to get this information out so people have an opportunity to really get the right mindset around what's going to be happening here. Now, first things first, we need to talk about the Tera type and the ability, because that ability could be a game changer in this particular event. First things first, we do know that Delphox is going to come at us with a Fairy Tera type. Now, going through the moveset, that really only opens up Dazzling Gleam is about the only Fairy type move that really could affect us. But the main thing that that's going to do is that's going to negate all Dragon, Dark, and Fighting types from being available for battle. The only types that are actually going to be strong against the Fairy Tera are Steel and Poison, and you'll kind of see that those are already knocked out really twofold when it comes to this type of fight. So we'll talk more about that here in a minute. I really want to harp on the ability, because the ability in this situation could be a little bit scary. Now, I did say this before with Inteleon, because we've never really seen these abilities used to the fullest of their potential. But these Pokemon always come with their hidden ability. Now, Delphox's hidden ability, Magician, will allow Delphox to basically take whatever item that you're holding. So any kind of physical hit, any physical attack, will allow Delphox to take that item. So you really do need to be careful about that. I don't know if that really is going to come into play, but I have built all my Mon very specifically to not necessarily need an item. Now, there are a lot of the usual suspects out there, your Shell Bells, your Leftovers, even like Metronome and some of the other items that can be used in this event. And we'll actually talk about those when we come to the builds here in a minute. But the main thing I want you to take away here is that you want to start by building a Pokemon that doesn't necessarily need an item. Because there is, I'll say a low chance, but an outside chance that Delphox may actually thieve that item. So if you're not successful in battle, you know, it could end poorly. So let's start off with that. But as I've said before, the other raids, that's never really been the case. We've seen Mon that can actually change so that their stab moves are more effective based on what they're doing, and they just didn't do that. They never really changed typings. When it comes to this, I think it's a low probability that it could be the case, but you do want to be prepared. So let's actually get back up here and talk about the movesets. Now, we do have quite a few status effects that could be in place here. Charm, Reflect, Will-O-Wisp, Sunny Day, which actually could be a little bit scary, but we have ways around that here. And Psychic Terrain. All 5 of those are potential status effects that I think could be put in play here. And Charm actually is a pretty high probability, as does Sunny Day. Those two have a very, very, very high probability of being used in this battle. I would say the next one on that list would probably be Reflect and Psychic Terrain. Will-O-Wisp will probably be pretty low, but you never know. We have seen Pokemon use status effects before to varying degrees, so this could definitely be a very worrisome battle to go into if you're not prepared. Reflect, really all that's going to do, and you'll see us actually use its counter opponent here shortly, Light Screen, but Reflect is essentially just going to reduce the amount of damage that physical attacks take. Now, number one, going into this, duly note that Delphox is very, very weak to physical attack. But in the fact that I think Reflect is going to be used in play, I've avoided Pokemon that do physical attack, because I think physical attacks are going to be very, very low. I say low priority, but literally you can almost take that defense number and double it if Reflect is used in play. Now, if it is not, then go ham on physical attacks. You know, and you'll see one here later that we built specifically with a physical attack, even though I do think that is a highly likely scenario, I guess I should say. I do think Reflect is going to be definitely one of the higher priority status effects that are in play. Now, as far as fire moves go, there are quite a few fire moves up here. Mystical Fire, Fire Blast, Fire Pledge, Flamethrower, Heat Wave. All of these have varying, I guess, attack powers and varying degrees of probability of hitting. But the main thing you want to take away here is that it is almost guaranteed to have some type of fire attack. And that means that your Grassmon, your Icemon, your Bug, your Steelmon, all of those Pokemon are going to be out of the picture. You're not going to be able to use those Pokemon in this fight. Now, remember, those attacks will still have stab effect. So those attacks are going to hit really, really, really hard. Now, I didn't cover all of the psychic attacks here, but I covered 2 of the ones that I think are the most likely, and that is Psychic and Psyshock. And Psyshock actually does have some secondary effects that are worrisome. So I think Psyshock probably is a higher probability. But either way, that also means that, once again, Fighting and Poison are out of the mix. And notice, in these last 2, we've already negated the 2 super effective types that you could use going into this battle. So you already know you're going to be going type neutral. You have to fight type neutral. So as I broke this down, I really came to the realization that there's 3 types that are going to be effective in this. And that is going to be Flying, and that is going to be Fairy, and that is Normal. Now, I didn't build any Normal Mon. There are quite a few Normal Mon out there that you probably could build. I didn't really focus on that for my build. So getting into the Pokemon builds themselves, we've started off here with Sylveon. Now, Sylveon's a very easy mon to acquire in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. You can acquire EVs throughout the game. You can actually acquire Sylveon itself from various raids and various different static events around the game. Sylveon's an easy Pokemon to come by. And we've initially built Sylveon with a Fairy-type Tera because it is going to heavily rely on Fairy moves, and Fairy moves will be effective, most likely, if I'm right here about my build, in this event. As far as ability goes, you're going to want to focus on Pixelate. Pixelate will make all normal moves Fairy-type moves, and will give them a little bit of power-up, so it really is going to be your main DPS, as you'll see down there in a moment. Now, I didn't give Sylveon an item just because I do feel like Delphox, admittedly a low chance, less than a 10% chance of being able to thieve items, but in the event that that does happen, you're going to be kind of out in the cold, so you want to be able to build a mon that doesn't rely on items. Now, as I said before, items like Shell Bell, items that buff up Fairy moves, items like Metronome if you want to just spam the same move over and over again, these will all be very good items to put on Sylveon, but I wanted to build Sylveon without the need for items. So, move number 1 is Light Screen. Now, we already know Delphox is going to be using special moves. There's no question about that. Physical attacks are exceptionally low, so you're pretty much only defending against incoming special moves. So Light Screen will put up a big defense against special moves. Fake Tears. Fake Tears you can use to basically reduce the opponent's special defense. So because all of our attacks here are going to be special attacks, Sylveon being a special attacker, we are going to focus primarily on dropping the special defense so we can do more damage. So hit it with Light Screen, hit it with Fake Tears twice, maybe even 3 times if you can. Then we're going to go in with Hyper Voice. Now, Hyper Voice is a normal move, but remember, with Pixelate, Hyper Voice is going to become a Fairy-type move and it's going to get a power-up. I think it's 30%. I could be wrong in that percentage, but it is going to get a significant power-up. It's already a very powerful move, and then that move is going to come in and absolutely do insane damage. If you need some healing, you can also use Draining Kiss. Draining Kiss is a Fairy-type move. Draining Kiss with the special defense down and with Light Screen up should just give you just enough health to get on to the next one. That is kind of going to negate your ability to use Metronome, because remember, with Metronome, you want to kind of spam the same attack over and over and over again. But if you've got Shell Bell, you may not even need Draining Kiss. It would just be a last-ditch effort. So that is the Sylveon build. I think it's a fantastic build. I mean, very easy raid build for this event. Next up, we have Florges. Now, Florges is another Pokemon that you can natively acquire in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Pretty easy to come by. Once again, it's just a Fairy type with a Fairy Tera, exactly like we built Sylveon. Just another option, essentially, in that realm. Now, the ability here is Prankster, because that is going to give status moves priority. That's about the only thing that you really that ability is really good for, and it really is the best ability to use in this situation, and I do believe, once again, that is Florges' hidden ability. So basically, use your ability patch, make sure you get that, so on and so forth. You should have ability patches by this point. You should have been doing plenty of raids up till now. I know I'm sitting on, like, I don't know, I can't tell you how many tons of them, though. Once again, no item, though. As I said before, you can go in here, you can use your Metronomes, you can use your Shell Bells, you can use your Fairy-type buffs. I just think, once again, there's an outside chance that our Pokemon could thieve those items, so I chose to build Mon that wouldn't rely on an item. Moves are, once again, going to be Light Screen. You'll see that used a lot here. That's just going to reduce the amount of damage coming in from special attacks. You're going to see Calm Mind here, and this is another one that we'll use quite a bit. Calm Mind is basically just going to do a bunch of self-buffing. That's going to buff your special attack and your special defense. The special defense will be especially good because, once again, Delphox is going to rely on special attacks. So, in essence, with Light Screen and Calm Mind, you really only need to do once, maybe twice, and you'll be taking next to 0 damage. It's going to be so nice. Though, do you remember that Light Screen only lasts a few turns? So when it comes to both Florges and Sylveon, you will need to put Light Screen back on after, I believe it's 5 turns. But nevertheless, going back in here, we've got, once again, Draining Kiss. We already saw that, and it's going to be a good healing. Those of you that remember the Appleton run in the Chestnut raid, basically it's the same thing. Just this is the fairy special version versus that one was grass. And then finally, Moonblast is just a general SA. This will be really good for just doing general damage. But honestly, if you're able to use items and you can throw a metronome on your Mon, if you've got Calm Mind twice, you've got Light Screen up, Draining Kiss will just eviscerate this Pokemon and just take it down hardcore. Very nice. 2 easy Mon to build right there in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now we get to my favorite. My favorite are the unorthodox Pokemon builds. Now, these are all going to be Pokemon Home transferable Pokemon, so you won't be able to acquire these very easily inside the game. But I think all of these are going to be fantastic builds for this event. Now, we focused mostly on fairy types. We haven't focused on flying, so we got to talk about Tornadius. Now, Tornadius has the same ability as Florges. It has Prankster, which basically gives it status moves essentially priority. And we're going to have 2 status moves in this situation. There's a big reason for that. Number 1, Rain Dance. Rain Dance, and notice there's no item again, just because, as per usual, I kind of think items may be at a distinct disadvantage in this one. But if you can, once again, your Shell Bells, your Leftovers, your Metronomes, things like that, easy stuff to build, or anything that's going to give a buff to flying type moves, because flying is going to be your main DPS here. But I digress. Rain Dance is going to increase Bleak Windstorm's attack damage drastically. So we really, really, really want to get that in play as possible. Nasty Plot will also double increase your special attack. So essentially, do Nasty Plot 3 times, Rain Dance once, and then spam Bleak Windstorm, and you will be annihilating your opponent. If we see that Delphox isn't taking items, if we see that that's actually not happening, you could even throw a metronome on this guy and just go to town. It will be a slaughter, and it'll be hilarious. But this is a great mon. I think this will be a lot of fun. For those of you guys that got him from Legends Arceus, which is where I got mine, or any of the other games out there, there's tons. Actually, I take that back. I think Legends Arceus is the one where he got his debut, isn't it? I think that would be the one where you'd have to get him from. But nevertheless, because I'm thinking Landorus and all those guys. So Tornadius is definitely a really solid option for this. But if you need one other move, Acrobatics will double in. Essentially, Acrobatics will double in intensity if there is no item being held by your opponent. So in other words, given that I'm assuming the Pokemon isn't going to be taking items, you can throw Acrobatics on Tornadius, and basically it'll allow Tornadius to do a lot of extra damage. Essentially, that's a 55 power move, but with no items in play, which they generally aren't, it's going to double up. So Acrobatics would be a good backup plan. Tornadius has a good physical attack, a really good physical attack, and the physical defense is really low on Delphox. The downside, though, is if Delphox is using Reflect or is stealing items, this will not become effective. Plus, it's not going to be affected by Nasty Plot. So it's really just a backup move. It's not going to be your mainline move. But I did want to include it here as an extra option in case you weren't able to get out Nasty Plots or, all that. Really, you could just spam Acrobatics and just go to town with that. Throw, Shell Bell on Tornadius, spam Acrobatics, and you'll be pretty well good to go. That's just, like I said, just a backup option. Now, in keeping with Pokemon that we could take from Pokemon Home, especially Legends Arceus, is one I've been working on a lot lately. I've been really focusing on getting my Hisuians and especially the shiny variants. Enamorus is one of these that I think is going to be really interesting to bring in. Now, its ability contrary essentially means that any status effects that are applied to it are negated. So let's say, for the sake of argument, I don't think we included any in here, but If there are any status effects that either lower special attack or lower special defense, it'll do the opposite. It'll raise special attack. It'll raise special defense. So Contrary would be a great ability. I don't know if it's going to be in huge demand here, but it is definitely going to be one of those that is going to be a lot of fun to use. Now, once again, I did not include an item, but at this point, as I've said before, you can use your shell bells, your leftovers, whatever. Metronome, especially since we're going to be focusing on Draining Kiss here, and you can definitely get what you need out of it. Now, the downside is, as far as moves go, I don't believe, and I could be wrong here, but I don't believe Enamorus can actually learn Light Screen, so you're not going to have that defensive move. Instead, what I've done is I've included Calm Mind here. As you guys know, that is going to be a really good buff. Springtime Storm is going to be a really, really, really strong DPS, and Draining Kiss is essentially going to be just that. It's going to be a move that you can use to heal some of your damage, and then that's actually going to negate your ability to use Metronome if you are using Springtime Storm. But if you have Metronome and if you have PP all the way up in Draining Kiss, and you're able to Calm Mind all the way to maximum stats, then essentially Draining Kiss will annihilate your opponent. But that's assuming that, once again, you can use items here. I think you will be able to, but I'm just, once again, planning for a worst case scenario. So, Enamorus, great Pokemon, going to be a lot of fun to run in this. Now, my last mod that I built here, I think is going to be one of the most fun mod to run in this. This Pokemon is really, really interesting. So, as you guys know, this is one you can actually breed. Like, the other two mod from Pokemon Home are legendaries, and you won't be able to breed them. But Togekiss is one you can actually breed. You'll actually be able to acquire pretty easily inside the game. And actually, I personally am shiny hunting that Pokemon right now. So if you guys are looking for Togepi's, maybe we could do a stream coming up here shortly on Twitch. Link will be in the description down below. Where we can start giving out some free Togepi's. That would be a lot of fun. But nevertheless, Togepi is a fairy flying type, fairy first, flying secondary, and so that gives us a wealth of moves that we can utilize. But I really focused more on Dazzling Gleam than much of anything else because I thought that would be the best move, personally, in my opinion, to use with Togekiss. So when it comes to this Pokemon, you do want this Pokemon to have a fairy type. You do, and once again, I built it without the need for items. You can use Nasty Plot to increase your special attack. Calm Mind will increase special attack and special defense. So in essence, like the best build here would be Light Screen turn 1, Calm Mind twice, Nasty Plot twice, and then spam Dazzling Gleam. And essentially, that Dazzling Gleam will just wipe the opponent completely off the table. It's going to be an amazing, I just fun situation to watch because Togekiss could do a ton of damage here. Now, the one thing you do want to be aware of is by the time you get all your buffs up, Light Screen will have dropped. So you probably will have to put Light Screen back up. But believe me, the other three trainers that you're fighting with are going to really appreciate this. Now, as always, these Pokemon are pretty much designed for a solo run in mind, but all these Pokemon can be used in group battle as well. So do bear that in mind. If you have other builds you want to see, comment down below. If you've come up with something really interesting that you think is going to be really good, maybe we can build it, maybe we can have some fun with it. We did that with the last couple of raids, and it was an absolute blast. So if you have recommendations, put them down below. Let me know what you guys think. As always, like, comment, share. I'll be back with more Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for you guys coming up here really soon.